Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. So it is that time once again to take a look at the biggest changes coming to the next patch 8.7 in just a couple of days. So as usual, if you guys end up enjoying this video, then don't forget to hit that like button, but let us not waste any more time and get right into it. So probably one of the biggest things coming to next patch is of course going to be the new Irelia or rework. Now I'm sure most of you are quite aware that Irelia, it did get a rework and it is currently on the PvE server, and if you haven't, then there's a bunch of gameplays you can check out on my channel and even other people's channel as well. But I'll give you guys a very quick rundown of her and how I feel like she will be in the first patch. Her passive essentially just gives her extra damage and attack speed based on hitting enemy champions. Her Q ability is pretty much the same thing as the current Irelia. Her W is meditate without the heal but also does damage. Her E ability is going to be a completely new ability that essentially is a double skill shot ability that also stuns, does a decent amount of damage, and gives you a free Q reset. And her ultimate is the combination of Camille and Thresh ultimate as well, and if you ever walk through her wall of blades, you actually get disarmed. Her build will be more or less the same as you currently run on Irelia, sort of bruiser, tanky build with Triforce, maybe a Titanic Hydra or something like that, and then pure tank afterwards. And all in all, I actually believe she is quite strong. Her ultimate is insanely good. She can make a lot of big plays since she can get a lot of Q resets now, since her ultimate also gives her a free Q reset, and she has a bunch of damage in her kit, and she just overall is a solid champion. A little bit on the difficult side compared to the current Irelia for sure, so it will take a bit more games to really understand her, but I do generally believe she is quite strong. Now the second thing I want to talk to you guys about is going to be essentially a mini rework coming over to the minions of all things, because they're wanting to change essentially how the laning phase works overall and how the current meta in mid lane especially is just playing pushing champions and then roaming. So for instance, Aurelion, Sol, Talia seem to really excel. The way they're doing this is by first of all putting a lot more emphasis on the cannon minions, giving it a lot more HP and also make it worth a lot more gold. So just from that alone, the waves are going to be more difficult to push in every 3 waves, and you don't want to miss a cannon minion for sure, so you definitely want to be there for that. But on top of this, the super minions have also received a change to where now the base gold value has been increased by 15, and also the gold value per 90 seconds, or in other words 3 waves, has also been increased by quite a bit. Melee minions are now worth an extra gold as well, but the ranged minions or the caster minions are actually worth 3 less gold at the very moment. So all in all, they're putting more emphasis on the actual laning phase itself to actually have a chance to outplay your opponents rather than just playing champions that push and roam or just push and chill a tower waiting for the next wave. Next up, I'm really sad to inform you guys once again that the Ahri and the LeBlanc reworks have been reverted or delayed once again. It seems like Riot is just simply not happy with what they have so far with these 2 champions, so it seems like they will not be coming out this patch once again, and we'll have to wait another 2 weeks to hopefully, crossing our fingers, finally be able to see these 2 champions in their reworked state on the live servers. But moving along, we have some buffs coming over to Elise, a jungler that is very strong in the early to mid game that hasn't really been seeing too much gameplay recently just because of the current meta in the jungle. Maybe this will bring her back up to speed. The buff is as follows: Venomous Bite, her spider Q, the damage has actually overall been increased by 10, and the Cocoon in Human E has actually had its cooldown lowered by 2 seconds at the rank 1, and it slowly evens out to being 10 seconds rank 5, which is the same as the current Elise. Honestly, not the biggest buffs in the world, but it does make her E ability a little bit better since you usually leave it at level 1 if you really want to and just go for straight damage with the Q and the W. Next up, we also have some buffs coming over to Gragas, and more specifically AP Gragas. So if you're feeling for some AP Gragas mid lane or just some AP Gragas jungle, then this is going to be the patch for you, because his Q ability's AP ratio has been increased by 10%, his AP ratio on his W has been increased by 20%, and it also now has a new effect to where now the damage reduction from his W also gets increased by extra AP that you have. Gonna be very curious to see if AP Gragas decides to make a comeback into the mid lane, because I used to play that thing way back in season 2 or season 3 before his rework, and it was a lot of fun. So very curious to see if it makes a return. Next up, we have a very quick buff coming over to Hecarim, where his W, the heal, has been increased from 20% up to 30%, which again isn't the biggest buff in the world, but keep in mind this will also help him be more healthy when he comes out of the jungle, especially on his first clear, which really can be quite a big impact. Next up, we also have some buffs coming over to Ivern, also a champion that hasn't really been seeing too much play recently unless you're an Ivern one-trick. The buffs are as follows. It seems like his Q has received a bug fix to where now it should be much more consistent jumping over walls using monsters. His W, the Brushmaker, the range has been increased by 200. And for Daisy, the AoE damage reduction now also applies on damage from epic monsters towards her, plus apparently they did some AI tweaks, so I'm assuming she just works better now. They were also testing a pretty big buff towards his passive where it just just makes it insanely better, which they actually did revert because they said it's a little too overpowered, but it seems like they might not be done with Iron just yet. Moving along, we have a very quick and small buff coming over to Karthus, where his Q ability's damage has been increased by 10 at every single rank. Now, this is probably not going to be enough to actually bring Karthus back into, I guess, prominence, if you will, but at least it'll help him a little bit. So for the few people that actually do play Karthus, I mean, it's definitely a welcomed buff. Because keep in mind, I mean, it's only 10 damage, but at how fast you actually fire off his Q ability, that 10 damage, assuming you land, let's say, 80% of your Qs, will actually add up quite quickly. Next up, we have a mini rework coming over to Lockz, and it's only going to be towards her ultimate, but it now has a new effect. So first off, the cooldown refund on kill for her ultimate has been increased from starting at 10 up to 50 to now starting at 30 going up to 50. But the new effect states, now triggers on enemy champions who die within 1.75 seconds of being hit by R. Now the thing that makes this extremely spicy is the fact that I believe now it'll actually trigger off of each enemy champion that dies, rather than the current Lockz where as long as just one dies, you just get the refund and boom, you're good to go. Doesn't matter if 1 or 5 die that got hit by your ultimates. But if you, let's say you hit 3 people with your ultimate and all 3 happen to die within the 1.75 seconds, or your ultimate kills all 3 or something like that, you will actually get that CDR for your ultimate back per kill, which is pretty damn nuts. So there is definitely some massive potential for her ultimate to be reset. Moving along, we also have some buffs coming over to Malphite, and more specifically AP Malphite, or at least his AP ratios. Now, starting things off, we have his AD per level actually been increased from 3.3 to 4, which is actually not too bad at all. But then we have Ground Slam, his E ability, where the AP ratio has been increased by 40%, and that is a lot. And then we also have his ultimate Unstoppable Force that had its cooldown reduced at ranks 2 and also rank 3. 40% extra AP ratio on his E ability is a lot, to where I wouldn't be surprised if Malphite's even top lane start building like Rod of Ages or something like that instead. Next up, we have a quick nerf on Olaf, where his ultimate has reduced movement speed offered now whenever you're going towards enemy champions. Now keep in mind, it does even out at rank 3 being 70% regardless, but ranks 1 and rank 2, it will be much less, especially rank 1. Next up, we also have some quick nerfs coming over to Sejuani, where the HP growth on the champion has been reduced, and also the Permafrost E stun duration has also been reduced. In my opinion, this is definitely a welcome change, because these tanky junglers that just do a lot of damage and offer this much CC are honestly quite annoying to face, so hopefully this will even further kill off the tank meta. But the next nerf is going to be quite a spicy one, and it's going to be towards Shaco or Shaco, because this guy definitely got pretty damn overpowered ever since the massive changes to Duskblade and to a lot of the assassins that used Duskblade in the previous patch, because my goodness was this guy strong. The nerf is as follows. The Sieve, his Q ability, the bonus AD has actually been lowered from 70% all the way down to 30%, a total of a 40% reduction. And I honestly think this is very well deserved, because he was just so insanely strong. Now, ever since Conqueror's release, top lane meta has definitely shifted to primarily being champions that can actually abuse Conqueror, and if not, then it's going to be just defaulted down to tanks. So champions like Rumble that really aren't either of those two have really received quite a big hit, so Rumble's getting some buffs. It's only going to be towards his Q ability Flame Splitter, but the damage has actually been increased, and the damage to minions has actually been changed to, rather than being 75% at all ranks of his Q ability, it starts at 60, but goes all the way up to 80 now. Honestly, I don't think this will change a whole lot for Rumble, and I feel like he'll still be relatively weak unless you actually leave Q at level 1, because you now have extra 40 damage level 1, but then you just go ahead and max out E second, then maybe, but honestly I don't play enough Rumble to know, nor do I really think this will do a whole lot. Then we have some nerfs coming over to Swain, a champion that a lot of people have started complaining about because of just how insanely dominant he is in the mid lane and top lane. The nerf is going to be towards his Q ability, where the damage has been lowered and the cooldown on it has actually now been increased back to 7.5 seconds at rank 1 rather than 5.5. And the last champion change I'll be talking about is going to be towards Zed, because apparently the buffs that they gave Zed just last patch weren't really enough, and I do agree. They weren't that bad, but they definitely weren't anything impressive at all, especially compared to someone like Shaco or many other champions. The buff is as follows. RazorShuriken, his Q ability, the secondary damage AD ratio has been increased by 9%, so 54% now, and the secondary damage has been also increased by a bit at every single rank. This will just make his laning phase a little bit more dominant, and if you don't get the direct Q damage on the targets, then at least you won't be missing out too much damage, so it won't be all that bad. Now following this, there's a quick nerf coming over to Gwynsu's Rage Blade, where the cost has actually been increased by 300 because of just how insanely strong this item is now, especially on a champion like Jhin. Following this, the Ninja Tabai boots have finally been nerfed, where the armor has been lowered from 30 to 20, however, the unique passive block value has been increased from 10% to 12. I think this is gonna be a worthy trade-off because at the moment the big issue is the fact that you can just rush these boots, get a ridiculous amount of armor, and also of course having your boots finished, and I mean it's just super strong early on into the game and nullifies a lot of, for instance, lethality damage. This will make it much less effective in that sense, and the extra 2% won't really matter a whole lot until you're very late into the game, to where you probably already have your armor penetration items, so I feel like it's actually a decent trade-off. Next up, we also have some changes coming over to the Resolve tree, because now if you take Resolve, whether it's your primary or your secondary, the bonus HP offered has now been changed from a flat number to now offering you a lot less bonus HP at the earlier levels, but now it scales up with level to being much higher at the higher ranks. Then we also have a quick rework coming over to Presence of Mind, to where now it states takedowns restore 20% of your maximum mana and refund 10% of your ultimate's cooldown, which is completely different than what it was. But it doesn't stop there, because Mana Flow Band has also received a rework stating the following: hitting an enemy champion with an ability permanently increases your maximum mana by 25 up to 250 mana, and after reaching the 250 bonus mana, you restore 1% of your missing mana every 5 seconds with a 15-second cooldown. So champions that abuse mana, champions that want to get Roa and or Archangel staff like Rise, Cassiopeia, will definitely like the new Mana Flow Band quite a bit. But following that, Approach Velocity has been buffed by giving you 15% movement speed rather than 10%. Legend Tenacity has also been increased to now give you 2.5% rather than 1.5%. Cut Down max damage has been increased from 10 to 12%. Absolute Focus now gives you 3 AD or 5 AP at level 1, and Zombie Ward's ward duration has actually been lowered. And last but not least, a very quick small buff coming over to the red buff itself, to where it states now that no longer will red buff do bonus damage to towers. But that right there, guys, is it for this video. There you have it, a bunch of new changes coming over to the next patch, patch 8.7. Let me know what you think about these changes down below. Which one do you think will be most impactful? What you think about this patch, and what you're excited to see, and what you're not excited to see as well. But either way, guys, if you enjoyed the video, definitely hit that like button to show your support. Thank you all so much for watching, and hope to see you from my next video. Peace.